You know, this is, I want you to know that you are, in some ways anyway, I mean, you are an extraordinary group of people, but in some ways you are very typical of Unitarian Universalist congregations who come in the door at the last minute. So, now I know that some of you are here early, and I appreciate that very much. But streaming in the door at the last minute is very, very typical of Unitarian Universalist congregations, at least the ones I have known. So good morning and welcome. My name is Tony Fisher. I am a minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples, UUCGN, and grateful to be so. I welcome you here this morning on this incredibly beautiful day in Naples, Florida. Those of you who are on the pavilion or moving out in that direction, I welcome you. And those of you who are joining us this morning online, you're especially welcome this morning. I hope you're comfortable in your jammies and your coffee and that you can enjoy the service here this morning. But we miss you, and we hope that eventually you'll sort of migrate back here to the sanctuary or the pavilion or someplace close by. Anyway, welcome to you all. Our congregation has a mission statement. It says that we are a welcoming congregation, freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth, that we strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. We work with each other every day to create this incredible space that we gather in. We work every day with programming that is both enriching and hopefully enriching both to our community here and to the wider community outside our doors, carrying our values forth from here. Thank you for joining us. If you're here for the first time and are willing to say so, raise your hand and say that you're here. If you're brave enough, welcome, Lisa. It's good to see you. A visitor. So, we're very grateful you're here. Lisa's also a visitor to my neighborhood, so I'm grateful that she's present this morning with Jim and Sarah. And anyone who's online for the first time, I hope you'll let yourself be known either in the comments on Facebook Live or by emailing our office administrator and getting on our mailing list. That information is available to you on the screen in front of you, or if you want to, just office@uunaples.org would be the place to go. So welcome to everybody, first-timers or long-timers. We're grateful you're here this morning. Let's center ourselves for our service with this morning's Prelude. The Flaming Chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Its bowl represents the cup of life from which we all drink, holding all that we share within this interdependent web of life. The flame that burns within is the light of the eternal, the energy of creation, a portion of the star stuff from which everything is derived. We kindle the flame with gladness for each and every member of our community, the young and the not so, those newly arrived and those who have been contributing for years, all with reference to the spirit of life that flows through and between us all. Let's join together in the chalice lighting words that are on your screen or on your order of service. In coming home to this space, may we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. And let's join together, rise and join together in singing our opening hymn, number 1020 in the teal hymnal, YRUU.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows where we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. YRUU, 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 YRUU. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. YRUU, 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 YRUU,
There you go. Just felt like I'm just running a race. So good morning and welcome. Today is an exciting day here because it's the start of our religious exploration program. I am told David Sleeper came down and said we have 12 kids in our RE wing. I saw another one zip by soon after that. And we know that we have 6 kids that are absent this morning that called in and let us know that they couldn't be here, for a total of 19 children that are prepared to enter our program this year. So, and hopefully that will grow as time goes on. Lots of things happening. Down there today, of course, we have Stephanie St. John, who's our DRE, Director of Religious Education, along with Georgia Hopeful, who's the Sunday morning RE assistant. And accompanying them this morning, my wife Ann Fisher and Brad Cornell, both of whom will be sort of assisting, and also at some point in the morning, the kids will be separated from elementary to middle and high school as we begin to think about presenting our OWL program, Our Whole Lives, which is a comprehensive sexuality education program that we'll be presenting this year for our middle school and early high school kids. So a very, very exciting time this morning, and we're grateful for those who are down there, both youth and adults. I wanted to share a story this morning about Ann's and my involvement with youth in Unitarian Universalist spaces. We met in 1979, and in the following year, we decided it was time to find a community, a religious community, in which we could participate and grow and explore. And we showed up at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation First Parish in Lexington, Massachusetts, and sometime in the fall of 1980, I believe. And of course, as a young couple, newly walking in the door, there's a lot of interest in our presence and excitement around the fact that we were there. And before we knew it, before we even realized it, we had been coerced or asked, or we volunteered, I can't remember which one, to participate in the youth group program and helping sort of create a high school youth group. So that was, I think, for both of us, an exciting possibility, in addition to our immersion into the congregation, where we were wonderfully welcomed. So we didn't know exactly how to begin this, and there were sort of issues already in place that we were made aware of. First of all, in that time in 1980, this was a transition period for our national youth programs. For so many years, an organization called Liberal Religious Youth, LRY, had stood firmly in place as the organizing body nationally of our youth programming. And in fact, the youth programming for both the Universalists and the Unitarians merged before the denominations actually merged. They merged in 1959, I believe. And do you have any? Does that sound right to you too, back there? 59 or 49? It could have been even that early. But at this point in 1980, following sort of the Cultural Revolution and things happening in the 1970s, it became clear that the autonomous, very autonomous LRY was not serving our congregations. It may have been serving the youth in a certain way. They were very, very autonomous, and somewhat the concern was that the LRY was sort of being influenced by a little bit of the drug culture. So there we were, trying to sort of move this congregation's youth group from LRY to something new that was designated as YRUU, Young Religious Unitarian Universalists, a more nationally driven program for youth programming, service, and the like. So there we were in this congregation that was also sort of having this struggle across the time frame. And we were told perhaps that one of the best things we could do in terms of this diverse group of kids that were now going to be showing up would be to take them on a bonding retreat somewhere off-site where they could really get to know one another and we could get to know them. And so very soon after arriving in the fall of 1980, we were planning a retreat. And so we did this, and we planned a retreat from Lexington, which is just in a close suburb of Boston, down to Cape Cod to a hostel that was down just on the other side of the Cape Cod Canal. And we would go there and we would have this retreat and have some outdoor activities. And that was great. And of course, we had to get these, basically, I think it was 14 kids of high school age. We had to get them there. And we only had 2 cars. And so for some reason, we thought maybe some of the kids could drive, and that would be okay. So, comes the night, we split up. We've got 4 cars going, and so we drive, and a lot of the younger kids are in our cars, and a couple of other youth are driving, and they have a couple of the older kids in their cars. We show up at the hostel, for dinner. We're preparing dinner and waiting. And waiting for the other automobiles to show up. And finally they do, and unfortunately your worst expectations are met. The kids come and they're inebriated in various degrees through various substances. So the trip is canceled. We nurture some kids overnight that needed some nurturing. We turn around and come home the next morning. We call parents. We let them know what happened. We disband the group for a time being. And we decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to let it go, or what are we going to do? So, and Ann and I are young. We said, we're in. We're there. And so over the course of time, we have some conversations with families, with the kids. We look to the new programming or the new guidelines for YRUU. And we begin again. And I have to tell you that was an incredibly fateful decision in that it was a remarkably heartwarming growth experience for both Ann and me over the course of the next 3 or 4 years as we engaged with this group of kids who really wanted a youth group, who wanted a place to be together in the course of their stressful lives in a suburb of Boston at that time. So the fact that we cared, that we believed, that we persevered, made all the difference to our lives and I believe to theirs. These are youth that ended up growing and bonding, both growing individually and collectively, and bonding and becoming a fabulous community. And they are still that way. We know that at least 2 members of that youth group are still members of that congregation and are raising their kids, or now their kids are probably grown, in that congregation. And for me and Ann, as I said, what we got was the joy and satisfaction of watching a group of kids change and grow, finding themselves intellectually and spiritually, individually and collectively, and kids who have grown up to be engaged adults. And that's a gift we continue to cherish. So if you would, please remain seated as we enter into our time of joys and sorrows with our centering hymn, number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. 95 in the gray hymnal. We'll sing all the verses. The words will also be on the screen.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere.
We gather today on an auspicious date. 21 years ago today, in the course of a morning, our world changed. The ages of those 3,000 who died that day including victims and first responders, ranged in age from 0, the unborn, to 79. And many more have perished as a direct result of exposure to the air around Ground Zero. People from 102 different nations perished. Close to 25,000 people were injured. And the lives of countless families and children were changed forever. "21 years, and we have not come of age." A whole generation has been born after that date. A generation of children who may not know of the horrors of that day, but who are still subject to the hatred and divisions that fomented that attack and remain in our world. As we light this chalice of community, let our focus be on those children and our work and hope for creating a safe and just world for them and their children. A world of safety that they might inherit. If you have a personal joy or sorrow that you'd like to share today, I hope that you will contact me so that we might include it in this week's Caring Corner. All joys, all sorrows are welcome in this loving and caring community. Please join me in the spirit of meditation. We are, each one of us in this congregation, different. Some of us are bigger, some of us are smaller. Some of us are taller and others shorter. Our hair is different colors, our eyes are different shapes. Our skin has different hues. We respond to things, our joys, our sorrows, in different ways. Some of us are reactive, some of us reflective, many of us are somewhere in between. Some of us like to spend our time playing video games. Others like playing cards. Some of us like walking. Others like reading. Some of us like eating cookies. Others like drinking coffee. Or all those things. We are different, but we're also alike. Because each of us is good at some things and not so good at others. Each of us has days when we are kind and help others. And we each have days when we are selfish and grumpy and gruff. We are alike because we each try to do what seems right to us. We do the best we can. Because we are not perfect. We each like it when we're happy and with good friends, but each of us has times of sorrow and anger. We sometimes think life would be easier if everyone liked just what we like, and everyone thought just the way we think. But that's not the reality. And yet our differences, whatever they may be, are what make the world and this congregation special. And one big thing that binds us together here is a shared desire to belong, young and old, to a community that shows its love and expresses its hope through word and deed. Let's spend some time in silence. Our reading this morning comes to us from Tuli Patel, who is a religious educator in Summit, New Jersey, and also the treasurer of the Liberal Religious Educators Association in the United States. primarily a Unitarian Universalist organization, but open to other liberal religious persuasions. She writes, "It was a clear night, and the observatory was open. The plan was for all 16 youth and 8 adults from Beacon Unitarian Universalist congregation in Summit, New Jersey, to hike up to the observatory, to gaze at the skies, seeing planets in all their glory, awe and wonder arising as the distance between universes fell away. The goal was community building and deepening of connections. It was special because it was one of the few times during the retreat, a youth retreat, when our group was not offered a choice. The idea was for everyone to go. Well, you know the saying, the best laid plans often go astray, and so it was with us. 12 of us ended up staying behind, 3 adults and 9 youth, mostly due to health and exhaustion. A riotous game of Uno ensued, and looking around the table of hilarity, I realized that the majority of youth identified as members of the global majority, that is, Black, Indigenous, or people of color. I began counting. On our 2-night retreat with 16 youth, 9 were or are members of the global majority, 5 were or are trans, 3 of the 8 adults are also members of the global majority, and that night a full 50% of us had stayed behind. Why count? In an age when we are told that a fixation on numbers is a characteristic of white supremacy, what story do our numbers tell us? I had stayed away from counting because of a recognition of the tokenization that often accompanies counting. That night, counting helped me realize that as we continue on the journey of dismantling white supremacy, as Loretta tackles anti-racism, as we live into the 8th principle, individually or collectively, we are constantly being invited to reconsider, readjust, re-examine, and reevaluate the systems, plan, and structures we have in place. Counting helps me stay nimble and alive to the processes that need to change, and that is why I love being your treasurer. That night, perhaps our youth and adults of the global majority needed more choice. Perhaps they needed more downtime. A one-size-fits-all approach seems inconsistent with anti-racism efforts, and here was yet another example. And most importantly, fundamentally, we have to ask ourselves what is needed in the moment, and how, if what we have in place is complicit in perpetuating oppression. And then we have to be willing to shift and change.
Two and two are 4, 4 and 4 are 8. That's all you have on your business-like mind. 2 and 2 are 4, 4 and 4 are 8. How can you be so blind? Inchworm, measuring the marigolds. You and your arithmetic, you'll probably go far. Inchworm, measuring the marigolds. Seems to me you'd stop and see how beautiful they are.
So I realize I might have been presumptuous in the meditation when I said none of us are perfect. So let's check that out. I'm wondering how many of you might sort of identify as perfect. Okay. All right. Well, all right. We've established that. How many of you are the perfect you could be? Well, let me try and rephrase that. How many are perfectly you? All right. And why? Why are you you? I mean, all of us are who we are through both nature and nurture. Because we began life with the germ of a personality or a temperament, and over the course of our lives we have been influenced or taught or grown through experience to see the world in a particular way, to see yourself in the world in a particular way. Some of us can identify a particular mentor or role model or event even that helped shift our worldview. Some have become more aware of ourselves in the world through the educational process, which includes not only the pursuit of knowledge, of critical thinking skills, but of the socialization that goes on through the educational process, interacting with not only our teachers, but those around us in the classroom, on the playing fields, in the lunchroom, all those different ways that we begin to understand who we are and how we fit, or perhaps aren't allowed to fit in the world. The public school system, and not all of you, I understand, necessarily attended public schools, but the public school system in our nation has been an incredible gift over a long period of time. Never perfect, but a gift in terms of enculturating many of us, some for good and some for bad. But today, our public school system is undergoing significant stress as it is serving as a battleground for the divisive culture wars that are raging in our nation. I'm not here to talk about public education necessarily, but there are issues within our Florida public education system that we need to be aware of. Florida laws are changing education and raising concerns about what can be taught and what can't be taught in public schools. A slew of new laws were passed during the past legislative session that are just now being implemented in the current school year, and the fact is that there's still a lot of confusion, lack of clarity, and concern, and creating a lot of problematic experiences for educators and for parents. Andrew Spar, president of the statewide union, the Florida Education Association, has exclaimed that these wedge issues in the education bills are creating a lot of problems, a lot of unknowns. So we have three particular that we're concerned about: HB 1515-7, which is the Parental Rights in Education, otherwise known as the Don't Say Gay Act, that moniker given by its opponents. But it's a bill that prohibits classroom instruction about sexual orientation or gender identity in public schools for kindergarten through third grade, or in a manner, in any grade, that is not age or developmentally appropriate under state standards. HB 7, Individual Freedom, the law now known as the Stop Woke Act, signed in April, restricts how workplaces, not only schools, but workplaces, can discuss race and gender, and prohibits teaching such concepts as that an individual, by virtue of his or her race, color, sex, or national origin, is inherently racist or sexist or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. And the fear there is that this will lead to a watering down of discussions about history in the United States and the relationship between differences. HB 1467 is a law that makes way for parents to be more involved in how school districts approve library books or instructional materials. We are aware that there are a number of books that are being banned in some districts. Especially during the testimony, supporters of the bill, referenced removing material involving LGBTQ+ issues, leading some critics to believe it's another attack on that community. These are not laws that embrace the kind of openness to diversity and the willingness to explore new understandings about how we have and how we wish to relate to one another through our differences. So why am I talking about that on this day when our religious exploration program begins? Because here I believe we are trying to figure out how we can meet those challenges facing our youth and families, those that are present and those that don't know yet about us but could benefit from a welcoming, nurturing community that expresses progressive values and is not afraid to talk about important things. We have developed what we are calling, actually, for lack of a better term, a market analysis needs assessment that the board approved last spring and granted some monies to pursue so that we might be able to look around us in this community and nationally to see how congregations are responding to many trends that are going on in religious education, see what areas that are of interest to families and youth, and how we might align who we are with those needs. And internally, what is the response from our congregation? How do we respond to the needs of our youth and families, and how might we get involved in shifting and growing that portion of our congregation that is underrepresented here? We know that there are important trends that we are facing, not alone. Organized religion, especially mainstream organized religion, is in the decline. And that's true especially for younger people with families. There are too many options, too many choices, and there's not enough there to go. The pandemic has exacerbated these issues. Oddly enough, congregations are filling up with upper middle class families who are finding the need for community in troubling times. Is that need not existent in the younger community? When we look at religious education, we often try to compare it to the heyday, as you might say, of religious education, especially within Unitarian Universalism. But that heyday really only existed in the baby boomer years between 1965 and the year 2000, when there were multiple grade levels of classrooms functioning in our religious education programs, and lots of volunteers to staff those classrooms. And since 2000, 2005, that also has changed significantly. There are some who say, well, what we should do is bring the families back into the sanctuary. Families who can come and bring their children into the sanctuary and would be presented with a multi-generational, accessible service every Sunday morning might be more willing to come and bring their kids and perhaps contribute to the congregation. But that presents a significant problem to clergy and musicians in trying to create a program that is viable and accessible from people from 9 to 90 with very different developmental needs. And yet, we need to think of ourselves as a congregation, as a whole, and any time any one of us, children or adult, enters this building for any purpose, it provides an opportunity for us to recognize this place, this precious place of value, of progressive values. So while I don't believe that bringing our families back into the sanctuary, at least for any degree of time on a regular basis, makes sense, what we do need to do is recognize what families are looking for, which is options, and not just on Sunday morning. Options for youth groups or small groups like we enjoy as adults, children's worship, regular classes using established curriculum, musical ensembles. We're doing, I don't know if you're aware, we're doing YRUU. And I think you'll be able to hear something from the YRUU pretty soon in this fall season. Social justice initiatives, being able to do service projects. So the viability of all these things, and we are, as I said earlier, doing our whole lives this year, our comprehensive sexuality program for our middle schoolers and early high schoolers. We could look at camps. The truth is, and the research shows, that if we offer only one of those things on a Sunday morning, or even two, that's not enough for families these days. And they will choose not to be here or choose to be other places. What we need to do is to be able to understand how we can access all the resources we have and offer multiple things, as I have just mentioned, to our families and youth, and I said, and again, those who know us and those who don't. The whole church as curriculum is a significant possibility, a significant idea. Anything a child or adult is in the congregation, in the buildings or grounds, or does with a group of people from the congregation or even from outside is curriculum of a kind. So to the list of the things that I've given, add church picnics, welcoming at social coffee hour, playing on the congregation's playgrounds. That means you too can go out there and play after the service. Attending a family camp in the summer, or any other activity that a child does with others within this space and within this community. In these challenging times, we are called to find answers to the challenges we face and funding programming for children, I believe, should be missional for any progressive-minded congregation. Next week, we're going to talk about what's going on nationally and what highly organized forces are challenging what we believe are the foundations of our democracy, including public school. And how we meet those challenges will tell much about who we are individually and collectively. The world is hard enough for young people to grow into. Harder yet if they are not taught to think critically, if they're not to be given the tools and best information, and by that I mean the truth, by which they can begin to grow into all that they might be and help solve some of the problems that they will inherit from us. We have, I believe, opportunity and an incredible facility. It's up to us to figure out how we might bring that to bear in a problem that faces our society. Young people are a blessing to a congregation, providing their energy and curiosity, enriching our days, reminding us that we are part of a stream of life that extends into the remote past and will continue on as long as we play our part in working for the future of this planet, sharing what we have been given, nurturing and challenging those budding minds and hearts, generously expanding and passing on the heritage of values that we once received, so that these children will, in turn, find their place in the world, find out who they are, and pass on those same values to the next generation. So may it be. Let's take a moment quickly to remind you, first of all, that yes, our RE program has started today, and that you are welcome to participate in that. You just need to be in touch with Stephanie St. John and let her know that you're interested, and there's options for you in terms of contributing in small ways and large. I want to remind you that in a few weeks, not this week, but next, one of our members, Dick Mackin, will be taking the pulpit, and I hope you'll be here for Dick and his talk. He'll be talking about the Enlightenment. I'm excited about that. And in October, one of the things that we're looking forward to is at least a virtual visit from Catherine Stewart, author of The Power Worshippers, and a conversation with Catherine, with her live on the screen and us here in the sanctuary. Power Worshippers is an important book about the rise of Christian nationalism, or Christian nationalism in quotes, because it is a nationalism that is tough to describe critically as Christian. So that is also an important date. We have Wonderful Wednesdays will be coming up starting later in October, so I think you need to be aware through our emails and all the information there, and keep informed about what's happening. So let's rise together. If you know, what am I missing? Offering. Oh, we want to do an offering. For perhaps our ongoing mission. My apologies to anybody who's running the slideshow or say, we are not perfect. Or I should change that. I am not perfect. All right. So now that I've given you announcements before the offering, and now you know all the things that are going on, the morning's offering for the ongoing mission of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples will be gratefully received. Who's waiting for who? Okay.
Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Gonna walk and never tire. Oh, walk and never tire. Oh, walk and never tire. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Gonna sing and never tire. Oh, sing and never tire. Oh, sing and never tire. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Gonna shout and never tire. Oh, shout and never tire. Oh, shout and never tire. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Sing together, children, don't you get weary. Shout together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting, great camp meeting, great camp meeting in the promised land.
Woo! All right, well, let's have our own camp meeting. Let's rise as you're willing or able and sing our closing hymn with as much energy as you can. This Little Light of Mine, number 118 in the gray hymnal, also on the screen. Well, let's go.
of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Let us fill our children's hearts with courage and strength and tenderness, and their minds with visions of a world where truth and justice prevail. Let us create safe and nurturing places for them to grow, and tune our ears to hear their truths about who they are and all that they see. And let us commit to our children's future by doing all that we can today to build the world we dream about. Go in peace, go in love. Have a wonderful day.